Welcome to Team Harrow. Today we're honored to have Gina Harrow, the incredible executive director of the Yellow Ribbon Fund. Not only has she led this vital organization with passion, but her personal journey as a caregiver brings unmatched perspective and heart to her work. Let's dive in. All right. 3, 2, 1, and launch. Gina.
Hi.
Thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast. As always, I give the official handshake.
I love that.
We were talking about the Yellow Ribbon Gala, which we both are part of the organization, which we'll talk a lot about. And at the same time, I was brainstorming of how to kick off the Team Harrow podcast and Team Harrow in 2025, since it was a little bit of a holiday hiatus like everyone. And it only seemed fitting that I bring on the other original member of Team Harrow, right? Because by definition, a team is more than one. And we have been together as part of this team for 16 years now. So it felt only fitting for you to come on and help me kick off this year. Also, you're the first female on the show, so that's something also too, to have you on as my wife and partner in Team Harrow here to come on and tell a little bit of your story and Yellow Ribbon and everything that you've done and overcome. You have, and I think, and I'm not just saying this because I'm married to you, and I'll hear about it later, but an amazing story, a lot of things that you've overcome personally, professionally. And it would be great to have you come on and tell your side of the story of things.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm kind of excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, that I think plays well with the idea and concept of Team Harrow, right? Is talking to other people that have amazing stories, whether they come from the athletic world or the military or professionally, but like personal and professional growth and development and how to be a better human, how to be a better version of yourself. And when we were talking about coming on the podcast, do you remember what you said?
I said, this is out of my comfort zone.
And I said, then we have to absolutely have you on, because if it's going to make you uncomfortable, then we need to do it, because I think that you'll only grow from it.
I appreciate that. You're always challenging me and pushing me. And I love that about you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So let's start with your background, right? Let's tell everyone, obviously, maybe our story, your story, where you're from, how we met, and we'll take it up to kind of how I, finding out that I got injured and so on.
Yeah. So we both are born and bred in Great Neck, Long Island, New York. And we met at the ice skating rink.
This is true.
Parkwood will always hold a special place in our hearts. I was from the south side of town. You were from the north side of town.
The wrong side of the tracks. Myself. Not you.
So we grew up in Great Neck. And even though it was split up into those two areas, everybody came together at Parkwood, and we had a lot of mutual friends, met at the ice skating rink, but started talking at a bar mitzvah.
A very, very Great Neck.
Very Great Neck. Very Boca thing too.
That's true. Yeah.
So we had met there, and then we ended up going on our first date at the Squire movie theater. Do you remember what we saw? Speed. We did.
Yeah. It was the same night that OJ ran.
That's right.
In the white
That's
white
right.
Bronco.
I got home and the chase was on, and I remember that. So a day that lives in infamy for many people,
yes.
But a day that is very special to us.
For us and OJ Simpson.
Yeah, we never kind of like spoke after that. No, a little bit. I think we spoke a little bit. I mean, we were young. We were like 12, 13, and reconnected after college.
Yep.
We don't have to get into the details of that.
We don't have to tell that story. We'll share that for part 2.
Oh, it's so cringe. but I am glad that we did reconnect. And when you came home from break, you were on tour, or you were deployed to Iraq.
Yeah.
No, we started talking before you went to Iraq.
Yeah.
And then when you came home, we got to connect, and it was like, I'm like, oh my God, this is the one.
What did you know about the military before me?
Oh, I know you're like laughing inside about that. I knew nothing. I'm from Great Neck. We know nothing about the military, even though in Kings Point, the Merchant Marine Academy is like right there in our backyards. But I think that for like a lot of people that are raised, with kind of like the silver spoon, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I came from like a middle class family.
It is what it is. I mean, that part of Long Island and Great Neck is more of a upper middle class
for sure
type town.
For sure. I mean, you are, groomed to go to college and pursue,
Become a
law
banker,
degree,
a lawyer, a doctor.
Go down to the city and, work in Manhattan. So being in the military is so far removed from what we were, a part of. So kind of reconnecting with you and finding out you went to West Point, I was like, wow, what is that?
Yeah.
I knew West Point, but I didn't know West Point.
Yeah.
And then just seeing what, you were doing and, talking to you while you were deployed, it was just, it was
eye-opening.
Yeah, it was crazy. You're like, oh my gosh, like this guy's at war. Like how crazy, I remember talking to you and thinking like, gosh, I don't even know if this is like the last conversation. I mean, it's, like in my head, it's very Hollywood-esque, but very real world for you. And
well, real world, I remember it was probably month 8 of me being deployed to Iraq. And I remember you emailed me and said, hey, are you guys getting extended?
Yeah.
I saw something on the news that everyone is getting extended because I was supposed to do a 12-month deployment.
Yep.
And I was like, no, I think that's elsewhere. It's probably like the 82nd Airborne or some other high-speed infantry unit or something. I was just in 1st Cav and kind of like a run-of-the-mill, I feel like at the time, unit.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on and it was very kinetic, but... and then like the next day or two, we got called and had this special little formation and our company commander read like the official orders that everyone was getting extended. And I was like, son of a bitch.
Like, how did this girl know before me?
News media, they leaked it. Yeah.
Yep. So you were gone 15 months, came back, we started dating. Kind of whirlwind.
Yeah.
Got married.
I trapped you quick.
You did.
As you like to.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
Deceived you.
You did deceive me. I love you, but you did deceive me. But I think that was, part of my ignorance and just not knowing anything about the military. We were in love and we wanted to get married and we wanted to find a date that worked. And so your schedule was tight. You were doing the selection and then the Q course to go into special forces. All I ever knew was the Green Beret song that my dad kept singing. And, he was like, I mean, you made his dream.
Yeah.
His daughter's marrying like a Green Beret. It's,
I mean, in his eyes, I was like John Wayne. Yeah.
Literally.
I think I still am like John Wayne.
You
in his
are
eyes.
like, yes, I think my dad loves you sometimes. I think more than me, but that's okay.
Yeah. He's great. When I got into special forces and I was living down in Fayetteville, right? And we had bought our first house. What was life like, or can you describe being married and like part of the Army now?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I was a terrible military wife. I hated it. Yeah. I hated everything about it. I hated you having these long days. It wasn't even just long days. I mean, you'd be out of the house at like 4, 5 in the morning. You were miserable in the morning. Yeah. Oh my God. But it was hard. I had to leave my job, leave my home. I mean, I had never been anywhere outside of New York ever.
Yeah.
Born and raised and was like convinced I was never leaving. Like, what is there outside of New York? You know, New Yorkers were very passionate people. We're like,
what's the area code on your phone still?
516, baby.
Yeah, you'll never.
I'll never give it up. And it sucks because here's 561. So people just kind of automatically assume and get my number wrong often, but that's my number.
Yeah.
You can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take New York out of the girl.
Certainly.
But yeah, I mean, it was challenging because I didn't know anybody. We were in the middle of nowhere. At New York, everything's at your fingertips. It's a hop, skip, and a jump it away. And then you're in Fayetteville and, its nickname is Vietnam, can't be a good sign. And you're like, what the hell am I getting myself into?
I'll always remember, it could have been maybe the first time. It was definitely one of the first meetings of my teammates on 1-5 and like the unique personalities. And I feel like you were just like, this guy Martine, your team sergeant Lance, Brent, like there's such characters, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, like, I mean, that team in particular was definitely very interesting.
Yeah.
Some great guys, but the personalities were like, it's overwhelming. You're just not, I'm not used to those kind of, people and characters and personalities. It was a culture shock, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to, it was definitely a culture shock.
But I do remember that team being extraordinarily passionate and committed. Like, one of the first times I ever met one of your team members, they're like, don't worry, ma'am, I'm going to die for your guy. I'm going to step in front of that bullet. And I was like, all right, that's intense, but like, cool, man, because, thanks. I want him to come home. So great. Sucks for your wife, but cool.
That same person that you're talking about, the first time that I met him on the team, intimidating for me because it's like, all right, I graduated the Q course. I'm a Green Beret now, but I still feel almost like a poser in a way where I'm like, I'm the new guy on the team, but I'm supposed to be the leader. Everyone's going to be looking at me. So I drive over to Fayetteville to meet him for lunch. He wants to meet for lunch. I'm like, all right, great. We'll go sit down and have lunch. And he's another part of the leadership of the team. And meet him at like some sandwich shop. And I'm like, hey, great meeting you. I'm glad that we have some time to sit down and talk about like the vision of the team, this upcoming deployment. He's like, great. No. And we're standing in line at the sandwich place. And he's like, go ahead, order. I was like, no, please go ahead. And he's like, no, I already ate. I don't want to eat anything. I'm like, okay, then so it was this weird thing that he did where he had me eat, because in that way it's almost in his mind, I think, like a sense of weakness where I'm there like sitting there eating, like he's just like, so this is what we're gonna do, and I have to sit there and eat. And I was like, these SF mind games that these guys play. Yeah,
it was your initiation.
It was
into the brotherhood.
It really was. I had a lot of funny first initiations with guys that like with Juan. My first time with Juan, which I need to have him come on if he ever like surfaces, because the guy's always like around, 1 minute he's in South Florida, the next thing I get a text 3 months later, he's like, hey, what's up, Hermano? I'm down in Chile. Can I get you anything? I'm like, dude, I was like, where have you been? When we went down and did training in Bumble F, South Carolina one night, and practice like talking to jets, like, and just like, it was cool because like, hey, you're gonna dress in civvies, we're gonna drive around in like your pickup trucks and SUVs, but we have these Air Force jets overhead, and you're gonna practice talking to them and having them check on station, the right script, what to say, and that way you get comfortable just working with aircraft. So when you go to Afghanistan, because that's part of the trade and the tools. And I'm with Juan. And Juan was actually the first person I met in the company, and he like let me in the door because it was locked. And for those that haven't met Juan yet, he has a very, very thick Colombian accent.
Yes. And
I remember listening to him on the radio, and I was like, I can't believe this is my communication sergeant, and I feel like he can hardly speak English.
That's Juan, but he gets it done.
No, he does.
He does.
He always finds a way to get it done. I love him like a brother.
Yes.
He's known as Tio Juan to our kids.
Absolutely.
I mean, pretty much all my teammates are known as Tio.
Yeah.
Because it's that close of a brotherhood.
They are our family, especially, the next team that you went on because of obviously everything that happened. Yeah.
So I come back early because Peyton's born. We moved down.
Just barely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just barely coming back and begrudgingly, if we're being honest.
Go ahead. Speak your
truth.
I'm
just saying.
I'm going to speak my truth.
Okay.
No, that is true. Because it was a high risk pregnancy, I was able to come back. We definitely had a discussion because I
didn't want to. You didn't want to leave your team, which understandably so.
Yeah.
But I was pregnant.
In a high-risk pregnancy.
In a high-risk pregnancy by myself.
Yeah.
So that sucked. But, we thought he was going to come early. He's a big baby. I'm tiny.
And looking back, it all worked out because from a mission perspective and my responsibility I felt like I had to the team, we had already done everything that we could do in that area, in that valley.
Yeah. And
there really wasn't anything left except just to prep for the next ODA coming in.
Yeah.
And so leaving, hindsight being 2020, you were right.
I know. No, we'll see that consistently throughout
it's a
this
recurring
conversation.
Pattern. You were right again. And so Peyton's born. I'm home only for a minute. A minute, right?
Yeah.
Because we moved down to Destin.
So you got orders, I think, like midway through, we knew you were going to be moved. We knew there was a chance that we were moving.
Yeah.
And then I think you came back home, and then it was like official. So we started plans to pack up and move. And I remember when you came home and, I welcomed you at the airport, and I had this like massive belly, and you're like, whoa, you're like really pregnant. Because we skipped over that. But when I found out I was pregnant, I found out like two days after you left.
That's right.
I went to your grandparents' house in
North Carolina.
And I stayed there.
Yeah.
Because I was by myself and I wasn't feeling good. It's just like, oh God, maybe it's because he left. I don't know. But I just like wasn't feeling good. And I went home and I was like, I should take a pregnancy test. I'm like, I don't know. And then I took it at like 2 a.m. I just, woke up and I was like, no, I think something's weird. I don't know. I took it and it came back pregnant. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to have a baby. And I'm like, I remember like looking around the room, like, who do I tell? It's 2 a.m. So I emailed you.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you got the email.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is such a weird way to tell him that, like, guess what? We're having a baby.
I was in the op cent at Tice, and I remember getting that email.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is like, wow.
Yeah, we're going to have a baby.
Who'd you tell first back in the States? I guess your parents?
It was probably my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really remember. I remember I wanted you to know first.
But didn't you tell, how did Jake, my brother, get involved? Did he ruin I feel like you, what did he do?
I mean, I told your brother.
Yeah.
Not first.
No, I know.
Obviously, he was nowhere near being first. But I did tell your brother first on your side.
Yeah.
And, like, it's not your story to tell, bro. Yeah. And he did. And I was so upset because it just felt like, he took that away from you.
Yeah. I was busy.
Lots of fun things that happen on your side. But yeah, my parents were probably, I probably told.
Yeah.
I remember telling my parents. I just don't remember like the timeline. But I do remember you being the first person that I reached out to.
Yeah.
And I was so, so happy that you replied because I was like, oh, okay, I could start telling people now. Yeah. He knows. We're good. So yeah, you came home and I remember thinking, okay, that's it. Like, thank God he survived.
Yeah.
We don't have to do this again because that was the deal. The military, SF, whatever, whoever's in charge of that said, that's it. Like, you guys are doing your little tours down south. And you wouldn't be up for the Afghanistan rotation for a while.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the plan.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I move over to 1-1, which is another great team of personalities.
Yes.
Well, fast forward, I guess. I deploy again. Well, actually, let's talk about this real quick. I think in the most typical of like Army lifestyles, we were in this dilemma of we have the house in Fayetteville, trying to figure out what are we doing after the military after that. We're basically living in like an extended stay down in Destin for like a month.
Yep.
Before I deploy.
Before you deploy.
Yeah.
And I mean, that made sense at the time because logistically we have a newborn.
Yeah.
I have to now put this house up on the market, move all our stuff from North Carolina to Florida. You're about to deploy again, which was not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I'm like you gotta find a way. Like, you gotta get out of this. You can't go again.
Yeah.
And we're trying all the tricks of the trade, and it's just not working, unfortunately. And so I was like, well, let's just do it when you get back. Like, I can't think about this right now. I have a job, you know, I have the baby. You're going away.
Your job at the time was what?
I was working at American Express.
Okay.
So when we were dating, I was up in the city. I was working in the tax department. I was in the audit side, had the best boss ever. Loved working there. I had the best team.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed working for American Express. And then we get married, and I am like, I don't want to leave. Like, how long do you have to do this military thing? You know, like, why don't we just like figure out a way to make it work? And my boss was amazing. He was like, all right, you know, like, we'll ship stuff down to you, boxes of, you know, everything that I would need, and to go through it and do it. But honestly, it didn't work out. For a while, I think I was doing the commuting thing where I'd be up there. He even worked on my hours and flexibility to, you know, be there Monday through Thursday, and then I'd fly down or drive down. Remember those days?
I remember that.
And I'd stay the weekend. I mean, you were away anyway.
I was going through the Q course for most of that
you were
in the
like,
beginning.
so yeah, you weren't there anyway. And so we did that.
We newlyweds, and we bought this beautiful house, and
nobody was living in it.
No one was even living in it.
Yeah, yeah. But then I came down, and then I ended up, you know, I didn't feel it was fair to him. I thought he was such a good boss and great team, and I was like, it's just not fair. I can't give you like what I would have given you in the city. So I ended up transferring. At the time, Amex had a headquarters or a service center in Greensboro. And I was like, oh, it's not that bad. It was 90 miles away from where we lived.
One way, right?
One way.
Yeah.
So I used to drive there and back about, 180.
180 miles every day.
Every day. But, like it was North Carolina. It's not like you're dealing with Manhattan traffic. So, it was an hour and a half each way. It was a huge commute.
Yeah.
But I was willing to do it because, then we were living together and we were enjoying our house for the time that we were both there and, hanging out. So now we have this baby and I'm like, I'm not doing this by myself. And so I was like, let's just do it after when you get back. So you deploy.
Yep. 15 May 2012.
Yeah. You get injured.
Yeah. How did you find out?
It was weird. It was a weird way to find out. So I was actually here in Florida. I was visiting my parents. My brother was not, I think he had been down that weekend. It was Mother's Day weekend. Mm. And I remember I begged you, I was like, whatever you do over there, do not ruin holidays. Do not ruin like birthdays or holidays. Just like try to like not go out.
Don't do anything stupid.
Don't do anything stupid. So that day I was actually going to take a half day. I was working in the morning and I was going to take Peyton to like the zoo or the aquarium. I don't really remember. I just remember.
Murakami, wasn't it?
No, I think we were going to go up either to Palm Beach or Miami. I mean, it was like we were doing something, like let's just get the baby like out, like whatever. And I turned to my mom and I'm like, okay, I just emailed. We're good to go. Like I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I was like, I can't find my phone. And she was like, all right, go check in the car. And I go in the car and I have like 10 missed calls. And I remember thinking like, what the hell?
That's a tad higher than normal.
That's higher than normal, but it was weird. It was a weird number. I knew it wasn't you because, the international numbers were always like really long and weird. But there were 10 missed calls from just a random number. And I was like, I remember saying, it's the fucking FRG, which is the family readiness group, which is like, a bunch of wives that come together and form like this group that keep everybody informed and just, trying to build camaraderie and a community around, while the guys are away, all the women come together. I was so anti everything. I just was too consumed with my life. I didn't have time for that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh my God, something happened. I don't know. Again, not thinking it's you, because from what I had learned, being a rookie, I didn't know. I thought if you get injured, somebody with a rank or somebody in the military would call me. I didn't expect the FRG calls. And she's like, hey, Mrs. Harrow, we've been trying to get in touch with you. Your husband was injured. I'm going to pass somebody on the phone. I'm going to pass the major on the phone. Some major gets on the phone. And I was like, huh, what? And the major gets on the phone. He's like, sorry, Mrs. Harrow, but your husband's been injured. I'm going to pass the doctor on the phone. And now I'm pissed off because I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, I thought you were shot, if I'm being honest. And I didn't think it was serious, which is so weird. I mean, looking back, but this is like, I think I was in like shock, self-preservation mode, like something. And I remember hearing the doctor say, you lost your legs. And I was like, what? And my dad is, okay, so I'm at my parents' house, their house. And they have terrible service in their house, which is like, ugh. And my dad is staring at me because I said, he's only hearing what I'm repeating. Yeah. So at some point I must have said, like, he was injured? What? And my dad is like, what's going on? He's like, just, he can't, like, and I just remember turning to him and I go, like, I didn't even mouth it. I just give him the no signal and I point to legs and I'm like, no. And I walk out the door. And I just remember seeing my dad's face and I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I didn't believe any of it. Like, I'm listening. And I didn't believe it. I was like, it's not my Ben. Yeah. Like, I remember, like, no, I don't think you have the right. And I kept describing you. I was like, 6 foot, black hair, there are things that I remember. I hate you for making me come on here. That will still get me upset. Yeah. Because I remember looking at Peyton and thinking, shit, what's happening to our boy? Like, what's going to happen? Yeah. Is he going to live? I didn't know.
Yeah, it still gets me too. Thinking about it, when we tell the story. And
because I think we don't actually really talk about it. We have not a lot, obviously. Yeah. I think it was one of the only times I've seen my dad cry. Like, I think my dad's cried like 3 times in his life. 2 of them were when he lost his parents, you know? And then obviously you. And I was like, okay, I'm still in denial. It wasn't until Danny called. And he was like, hey, Gina. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? Because
aren't you
Danny
supposed to be deployed?
So like, did you know that he... No, I didn't know that he was home. I found out then. Yeah. But he was like, hey, Gina, it's true. Yeah. And I got a weird text from Alex, another friend of yours. Yeah. And he was like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, ew, random, So Alex, like, why are you texting me that? I had no idea. Yeah. So it wasn't until I spoke to Danny, because I knew Danny was supposed to be with you. And when Danny called and said it's true, I was like, okay, I got to go for a run. And that's what I didn't cry, by the way. Mm-hmm. I still I did not cry. I was like, this just can't be. So I go for a run and I come back and I remember my dad giving me Peyton and he was like, hold the baby. And I lost it. I was like, shit. Yeah. Like, I think at that point I didn't know what to expect. I knew you lost your legs. I didn't even know. Nobody said anything about your arm. So that was like something that came later. And I just remember thinking like, well, is he going to survive? So my dad took the phone. It turns out you almost didn't survive.
Which I didn't, I'm kind of fighting through it. I didn't realize.
Yeah, you're twilighting. You're just hanging on by a thread. Peyton is 1 year old, not knowing anything. And then my dad, I'm saying, can I go over there? Can I meet him? Because I knew that you would be going to Germany, and they said no. And I didn't know why everybody was saying no. Turns out they didn't think you were going to make it. But I didn't know. I was just like annoyed. So now I'm angry.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to like, why can't I be over there? I didn't know anything. So that week sucked.
Do you remember our first conversation on the phone after I got injured?
I do.
I vaguely, because it was such a dream state to me.
I mean, do you really remember? Or do you feel like maybe you remember from stories? Because I always wonder that. I think, so you were in a coma. They put you in a medically induced coma. They stabilized you enough to go to
launch stool?
To launch stool. And there, they were starting to clean you out, do the surgeries, whatever. And actually it was like on your way there that I found out your arm was, you almost lost your arm.
Yeah.
Like a big chunk got blown off.
Well, you described it as when you first saw it.
Like a shark bite.
It looked like a shark bite.
It looked like a shark bite. And I'm obsessed with like sharks. So I was like, whoa, but they ended up taking your lat muscle and putting a flap and saving it. Thank God, by the grace of God. I mean, that thing was like, I remember hearing that days later and I'm like, what? Like, what else is going on over there? Like, it was just awful.
But yeah, the first time that we talked, I think it was in Germany.
Yes.
And for some reason, it's weird because it was such a weird dream state for me. Like, I remember being on the phone with you, but I feel like I also remember being on the phone with guys from 1-5 at the same time. And I don't know if I was having like hallucinations and dreaming, or if they also called me or tried to get out in touch with me. Like, I feel like talking to Brent.
I don't know.
Reason.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but so I don't think that happened. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I was so doped up on so many narcs.
Yeah.
It could have been a
but you did. You woke up.
I had a lot of hallucinations going on.
They woke you up. I don't know why they did this, actually. I thought it would have been more comfortable for you to be in, like sleeping through that flight, because I know that flight was miserable.
It was horrible.
But we did. We got to talk, and you told me, you said, I lost my legs. And I said, I know. And you said, it's okay. I'm going to figure out how to walk again. And I was like, I know. And then you're like, I'm going to run a marathon.
I remember
And
that.
I was like, okay, Benny. Okay.
I remember that.
We'll run a marathon. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I hate running. I don't want to run a marathon. I'll do it for you. Okay. So it was like comforting, because I heard glimpses of you. But I didn't know. Like, I remember thinking, does he have brain trauma? Is this going to mess him up mentally? Like, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
It's weird though. I always think like, because the Hollywood side of everything, I always think if they ever did a movie on you, there's like this foreshadowing moment in our life. And I think you know what I'm going to say. When you were home from that first deployment, I remember talking to you in North Carolina, and, this unfortunately happened to one of our good friends. And I was like, shit, like, what if this happened to you? Like, would you be okay? And you were like, I would be fine. I would be fine. I would make it work. And I remember that. And I remember thinking like, yeah, it's easier to say than to do. Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until you came home. So they stabilize you. They wake you up. You're out of a coma. You're about to trek over from launch stool to Andrews Airfield Base, right?
I guess that was, yeah.
And then they drive you over to Walter Reed. So we met you at Walter Reed. And, you know, we're all lined up outside.
Which, let me tell you, from my perspective, was another trippy dream experience.
I'm sure.
I'm a day or two out of a coma. I'm still drugged up. I'm like in and out of consciousness. I've been throwing up the entire flight.
Oh, it's awful.
And then to come out of this like ambulance and see like different people from different parts of your life, like there, you know, like my wife, her cousin, one of my teammates from the lacrosse team, one of my like SF friends, you know, like all these worlds combined. It was very weird.
Yes. Yeah. So we meet you at Walter Reed and they take you off in a stretcher on the ambulance and we're all lined up. You're on the stretcher. You come by and you're like, hey, babe. And I was like, hey, Benny. And then I swear to God, though, like that sticks out so much because I'm like, oh, he's going to be fine. I just knew. As soon as I saw you, I was like, okay, I got this. So I feel like the crying, like all this didn't happen till like much later or like weird bits. Like my dad said, like when it hit me that it was you, I was like crying, laughing because I was like, of course. Like we don't win lottos, we win bombs. Like it's weird. But I was like, okay, like I have to be in the zone and save and help this guy survive. Like that was it. So then starts our journey at Walter Reed.
How hectic were the first, I guess, couple of weeks for you? And maybe together we can come up with a better term for it. And we talk about it all the time, being a caregiver. Yeah, you're giving care, but I mean, I think it almost goes with what we talked about opening this podcast is like you're a team member, right?
Yeah. And
it's really being part of that team. And from your perspective, how hectic was it being part of like this team?
Well, it was like the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life, bar none. Like I was not prepared. You are not prepared for something like this. You know, like I knew it happened. That whole week was just awful. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I was sick to my stomach. Like just calling everybody I knew, just asking questions, just, you know, nobody had answers. Nobody knew like what to say. You know, I remember everybody just kind of like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I knew in my gut, like I didn't believe anybody. I was like, I need to see it for myself. So now I see you. And, you know, now it's just getting started. Like now we're rolling up our sleeves and like, okay, like we're in survival mode, you know? Like I think you know, you're in and out of surgeries Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're going in for these surgeries. You're in ICU. You know, there was several scares throughout. You're bleeding out.
Oh, that was an episode. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember everything. I remember everything.
Unfortunately, this is true. You do remember everything.
Scarring, you know, because to me, you're the strongest person I've ever known. You know, you were like, I mean, I hit lotto when I married you. I was like, he's so hot. He's so awesome. Like my best friend, you know, I'm like, I win. And you were always taking care of me, you know, like I never knew you were scared of nothing. You're, you know, like everything is just, you'll figure it out. And it was like, shit, it's my turn. Like I can't be scared. I can't be sad. I can't show him weakness because he's so weak right now. Like you were like, I mean, you went from like 220 pounds of solid muscle to like 130 pounds of like nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you were tiny. I literally remember I was carrying you.
Yeah.
I was carrying you.
How crazy is that?
Like, that's so weird to think. I was carrying you. And I was like, I remember like just seeing you and I was like, oh my God, like my heart broke, you know, it was hard, but I was like, no tears, not in front of him. Like, you break down somewhere else, but like in front of him, that's it. Like, we're in the zone. And that's, I mean, I didn't have time to be sad, if I'm being honest. There was no time, you know? I mean, every once in a while, you know, like, you're like, okay, I need a good cry. I need to like get it out, but then like back to it.
Yeah.
You know, there was no time to truly grieve and mourn what could have been. It was all about just getting you to survive. You know, Marky wasn't around at the time, but it was all about Peyton. All about Peyton. So watching you go through ICU was tough because, again, there were so many unknowns. You kept, like, there was a scare where you had a pulmonary embolism.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we were scared about that. You kept educating the nurses. You were very funny. Through all your, like, the drugs and, like, everything, you kept telling people what to do. Like, you were still taking the lead. So to me, these were successes. These were, you know, glimpses of hope, you know, because I know you. And I know if that, you know, I know that's Ben.
Yeah.
So I know Ben is peeking through all the drugs, all the pain, all the everything. And it was truly inspiring for me and my strength to give you the strength that you needed, you know, through that whole thing.
You should remember what I said one time when Danny Fields was in the room?
Oh, you told Danny that you were Batman, which is awesome.
I don't remember that at all, but I guess I
did.
turned to Danny and I was like, Danny. And he's like, yeah, Benny. I go, I'm Batman. And he's like, you said,
Yeah, you
like,
are.
Yeah, Benny.
Yeah.
You're Batman.
So he came out and he was like, so Ben's Batman. And we all just started laughing and we were cracking up. But it was like your personality was coming out. And it was, you know, it was like honestly relieving for all of us.
Yeah, I think there were moments where like people just needed a good laugh at times.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it's so stressful. And I remember those early days in the hospital too, like past the ICU and like, you know, like that first month and my arm's still banged up and I'm still driving around in my like Dr. Evil wheelchair and like all I could do is just laugh at it. You know, like I mean, we had our moments where like I remember crying to you about like I can't believe this happened. You know, like I've always been an athlete. I can't believe I'm now sitting here with no legs. I'm like, it's just I don't get it, you know, and trying to wrap my head around that and then move on. But I just feel like there are times and moments where like all we could do is just like laugh at the situation.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's where, you know, our love and friendship truly like helped overcome all this pain and devastation, because it was devastating, you know. I was so mad. I remember then, so you're getting better, you're out of ICU, you don't want to do drugs anymore, you're like, get me off all these painkillers. You're like, I still feel the pain, just get me off it. And I have a fear of throwing up, and all you're doing is throwing up. And I'm like, God, just make it stop. Just make it stop. It's like, now this is painful for me. But you did. You got off it. You were like a record breaker there, just getting out of the hospital early, you know, earlier. And I remember, you know, an SF team, there was some guy, some general that came into your room, and he was like, you know, comes in with his squad, and he's like, don't worry, son. We're going to get you back home. We're going to bring you down to Texas. And I was like, Texas isn't home. That's not home for us. Who are you? Who are you? So I don't think I was well liked in the SF community.
I come to find out later that you were very well known of, and a lot of the commanding officers were actually scared to speak with you down at 7th Group. There were some guys at group there was one in particular that actually, he was the assistant deputy commander. Forget his last name at the time. I mean, we're talking like 10 years plus ago, right? That when I went down there afterwards back in 2016 to get like my award and like officially retire and stuff. And I was with all the guys in 1-1, and they're like, yeah, man, your wife, oof, there's a lot of people here that did some, that she put the fear of God into them.
Well, I kicked out the general.
Yeah.
I was like, you're misinformed. That's not his home.
Yeah.
It's not where we're from. DC worked out great because we were, 4-hour drive to New York.
Yep.
Yeah. We were halfway in between our families. It was easy for everybody. And my parents took Peyton at the time.
Yeah.
And were raising him while I was at your bedside. So I had that cozy little chair.
Yeah, the little couch / chair that you slept on.
It was a chair. Yeah. So, I mean, we didn't have time, like I didn't have time for this. And that was the other thing. Like a lot of people wanted to come down and see you. I know a lot of friends, or I remember one guy was like, I'm getting a busload of people. I was like,
Now's not the time.
Now's not the time.
Yeah.
Shut it down. I shut everything down. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care who I offended. I didn't care who felt bad. I had one mission, and that was to get you back up and going. I mean, I remember going down to the MATSI, which was the rehab center. And they were like, this is going to inspire him. He's going to be so happy. Look at all these people working hard. And honestly, I was like, this is not going to inspire Ben. I know my Ben. This is not going to inspire him. It was a bunch of people sad, depressed, overweight, not working hard. And it comes, it comes time for you to go down there. And it turns out you're the inspiration. Because there you are, putting your headphones on, getting the work done, putting in the hours, making it happen for yourself. Because all those people kept telling you no, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm very mission oriented, and I just kind of put my head down, and I knew, I didn't know exactly what like right was going to look like, but I just knew that I had to like progress. And like in the beginning, like I got to get off these pills. Like we got to like figure out the next step. And then I knew I had to get down on I had to start whatever the recovery process was, and we got to be rehabbing and got to like figure it out. Like I figure it out, like whatever it is, we got to figure it out and keep doing something and doing something and doing something. And, I think that led to me figuring out, us having that initial conversation about the bone lengthening when we were down here in Florida.
Yeah.
Which was, you were my muse in a way to help me figure out there's a process, or there's something out there that can kind of help me get out of this wheelchair. It was a long process.
It was a long road. And as much as I say I hate the word caregiver, I do. I hate it. For me, it has a negative connotation, and I know for some it doesn't. And my organization is about serving caregivers. I don't take that away from them. I know there are caregivers out there, and I respect them. I appreciate them. For me, the way I looked at it, I was caregiving for you, but there was no, there was no choice for me. I guess there was, but the way I had seen it, you were my partner, you were my best friend. I didn't want to lose you. And so it was, again, for me, I looked at it like survival mode. I just had to do it. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to take care of you because I knew if the roles were reversed, you would take care of me. And I wanted you to be there for our son. So, it was what I had to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to just walk away from it all. That wasn't an option.
So kind of springboarding into where Yellow Ribbon comes in and like your current position in the organization. There's a lot of military-esque, veteran-esque nonprofits out there.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were in the hospital together in the very early stages, like every day somebody else would come in and like, hey, can we come in? Like, yeah, come on in. And, they'd be like, hey, I'm such and such from, trucks for our troops, and if you need a truck after you get out of here, we're an organization, we get you a truck. I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. I can't really drive right now. If you just want to leave your card on the table, and then like 6 hours later, hey, can we come in? Yeah, come on in. And they're like some other veteran nonprofit, and all great intentions.
Yeah.
Not all of them do the same thing. Not all of them are do what they say in some regards, but some better than others.
Sure.
And we had our different experiences with some of them. To be honest, we didn't really do a lot or rely on a lot of them. It was more of just like our internal like family. Yeah. Your family.
Definitely.
That we were able to use as like a base to do whatever we needed to do for me to progress and get better, and for us to eventually get back together, and most importantly, like get our son back and kind of start whatever this next chapter is going to be.
Yeah.
So we had your strong family, which I was adopted into as their like free agent. I'm technically like the Italian of the family too, air quote. We have the special operations like support community, because there was some, remember Rory and Marty,
Sure.
Chuck, like there was really good dudes there that like wanted to help other soft guys and kind of like cut through a lot of the bullshit of the bureaucracy and the DOD to help us succeed. So we didn't really need nor want much, because we were very like mission driven, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we experienced what other veteran nonprofits had and what they did. Yellow Ribbon Fund being one of them, of just kind of like, all right, it's like another nonprofit. I don't really know much what they do.
Right.
And now this kind of turns into like how you get pulled into the organization. If you remember, I was doing an internship at a wealth management group down there.
Yeah. And then you met one of the board members.
I met one of the board members, and he was a former military guy. We became friends. And he was like, what would your wife like to... Is your wife looking for a job? And he was starting to kind of explore the ideas of you coming on board.
Yeah. And we, at the time, met with another board member, or two board members, actually. Well, we met with John Adams.
Yeah.
Who's one of the founders. And,
So how did Yellow Ribbon start?
So Yellow Ribbon Fund started when a couple of guys, John, Ed Quinn, a couple of others kind of went over, saw what was happening, saw that these guys and girls were coming back, with catastrophic wounds like you, and all these illnesses were kind of like piling up. And it's just like, it was madness at Walter Reed. I mean, people were coming in droves. It wasn't even in every week. It was like every other day they were coming back. There were multiple floors filled with, unfortunately, young guys and girls that were just really, really injured from combat, Afghanistan and Iraq. And they went over, in their backyard, and they're like, well, how can we help? What can we do? And I guess they met with some of the nurse case managers. This was back in 2005. I mean, you had just graduated West Point, so we're not even like part of this world yet, and they had met, and they were like, well, these guys and girls are getting the best care in the world. But their families are suffering. They're getting pulled from their daily lives and their jobs and families, and they're at these bedsides, and they're just in these really uncomfortable chairs. And, let's get them a hotel room. Let's get them like something to eat. Let's just give them a break. They're just there. They're not sleeping, not eating, whatever. And they did. They took care of them. They took care of one of the first, round of supporters or recipients were moms and wives of these service members that were there at the hospital, and they, got them a hotel room, got them a Thanksgiving dinner. I think they brought them to their country club to have some dinner, and they were just so grateful. And that's how it started. Yellow Ribbon Fund was originally just, hey, we're well-to-do. We've served, or some of them hadn't served, but they wanted to give it back. So it started as a fund, just to kind of give. Then it really blossomed into something else. The amount of people that were coming back wounded, they just didn't want to stop. caring for them. And there really wasn't anything else at the time there at Walter Reed. I mean, you had the big boys, you know, but they were up and coming as well. The big nonprofits. I mean, I don't want to mention any names, but you know, like they were there, but even they were there for the service member. Yellow Ribbon Fund was truly there for the family in the beginning. And, you know, what I love and still love about the Yellow Ribbon Fund is that that's, you know, it's always been about family. And so while we weren't recipients back now, so now flash forward, you're injured. I don't even know about the Yellow Ribbon Fund. We're going through it. I didn't need Yellow Ribbon Fund because we do have an amazing family. Our family took care of everything. You know, I couldn't care for you while you're at the hospital and I'm staying at your bedside and take care of our 1-year-old. My parents did. You know, my brother's driving Peyton down so he can visit us, you know, from New York. Now this idiot's telling us we're going to Texas. I was like, no, no, you know, but when I looked around the 4th floor, you know, because you walk the halls and you're just trying to get some air and you're meeting other families going through the same exact thing as you. It's like, you know, every door you're like, what's your injury? What's your injury? You know, you're meeting these moms, these girlfriends, these wives, these dads, siblings, and they're lost. They don't know. I mean, we were, 30 at the time?
Yeah.
About?
Yeah.
31?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't want to say we were established, but we were, you know, we had been married several years. We have a baby, you know. We had a good foundation. A lot of the kids, they were kids, 18, 19, 20, enlisted, you know, there's no money, you know, they just went out of high school and thought, okay, let me just join the military because I don't know what else to do. And they're coming out with these injuries. I mean, double, triple, quadruple amputees.
Yep.
You know, that's hard for anybody, let alone now some of these people, some of these wives, they couldn't handle it and they'd leave. And then who are they left with? You know? So it was organizations like Yellow Ribbon Fund that truly came in. Hey, let me help you out. Let me do this for you. Let me do that. You know, let me get you a hotel room so that you can have a loved one by your side. Let me get you that rental car so you can go back and forth. You know, these are like things that we kind of take for granted. We don't, you know, we're blessed. This country is like, we're blessed. A lot of things that people take for granted here. And you don't really realize how blessed you are until something like this happens. And then you start to see who your friends are, who your family is, who's there for you. When we sat down with John Adams, you know, we were skeptical. You know, we were like, if we're putting our name to this organization, it's going to do what we say it does. We are going to be that family. That was very important to me because, like you said, we did see all those organizations come in and out. We saw them hand us their card and promise us the world. And when you needed something, all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, you know, we don't offer that. Why? This is what I need, you know? So, you know, it was eye-opening. Again, I was ignorant to the military. I was very ignorant to what happens when you're injured in the military. It's one of the things that they always told you. It's like, we're a family. We're going to take care of you. We're your brothers. You know, like a distant brother, you know? Like a stepbrother.
Yeah. There are a lot of gaps in that, like, bridge or foundation of treatment, like we're talking about, that you just assume it's like taken care of, right?
Yeah.
Hotels, transportation, just simple little things that you would think that, like, oh, well, isn't the military like paying for that? Like, what do you mean the military is not going to pay for daycare so that way you can go do your rehab, or like relocating you to, you know, another facility or travel? Like, yeah, I'm sure they take care of the service member, but they're not going to pay for the, you know, their caregivers, you know, on the back end, the caregiver's parents, or like the things that people don't think about, the second and kind of third order effects of this.
But you don't even realize how important this is until you're in it. And you're like, I miss my mom, miss my dad. I miss my baby. Yeah. You know, like I need them. I need them here. Yeah. You know, you don't realize, you know, and to be fair, there's only so much that the government has budgeted for this. And there's only so much that every organization can do, you know, so it's good, you know, that there are things, organizations set up, processes set up like Yellow Ribbon Fund that can fill those gaps. Because it really is such critical support that we totally take for granted for. I mean, now you're injured. We're now in Bethesda, Maryland, which is very expensive. It's like a Great Neck. It's like a Boca. The rent there is astronomical. If we didn't have the support, we're paying a mortgage.
Yeah.
We still have that house in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I can't work. I'm now like taking care of you at the hospital. What time? And by the way, my job was fantastic. But at one point, you know, they need me to come back and fill that role. You know, they can only do so much. And as amazing as everybody was, it was time for me to step away. I realized this is not just a couple of weeks. This is a journey. And I remember talking to my boss and crying at the time. I said, I can't do it. And she was like, I'll never forget. She was like, I was waiting for you. Like, what? I was waiting for you to break down. Like, of course you can't do it. Of course this is too much. And I said, something has to give. And it's the job. I can't give up on my husband. I can't give up on my son. But there goes our income.
Yeah.
And you're in the military, and military salaries are not a lot. And my salary was really important. So we had to give up the house, you know, and these are hard hits, you know, for a family that's trying to like establish themselves, and a lot of things like people just don't realize that you go through. You know, your world didn't just get rocked by these catastrophic injuries. It's all the secondary and tertiary effects that happen. It was snowballing. I mean, we were really, you know, like looking back, we were in the thick of it.
Yep.
Like I'm always high-fiving us in my head, like, how the hell did we survive that? I mean, a lot of people like probably didn't like us much, but we were like on a mission.
Yeah, everyone that I remember talking to at the MATC, Allison is a great example of that, how she was at the MATC and helped out, right? And she always said that she was very intimidated by me because I would just wheel in there, put my headphones on, get to work.
Yeah.
And I would tell her every now and then, like, hey, can you get me a water bottle? Thanks.
Yeah.
And like, that was it.
Yeah.
Where other people, they use it for rehab, but they went down there to hang out and
socialize.
I get it. Socialized, you know, they probably needed that or wanted that, and that's fine.
And that's part of it. I mean, that's part of what Yellow Ribbon Fund offers now. You know, they do provide that family support, that camaraderie. You know, now you're meeting people we're nationwide. We have chapters all over the country, and we have a national virtual chapter. So all these families can meet up. And I think that's a really important element of it. You know, the social aspect. When we were going through it, we had that community of support. It was our friends and family. Everybody was there for us. I mean, my family was incredible. You had some really good friends. You know, they were by our side the whole time. These other people didn't have that. And so, like, I think people hearing this, they just assume, you know, and I assumed back in the day, the military takes care of them, right? No, they don't. But think about it too. Like, who expected all these people to survive these kind of injuries? You know, technology has improved so drastically. Science has improved so drastically. People weren't surviving these injuries back then. Now they are. Yeah. But now there's like a whole next phase of this. So you didn't just survive, but now, like, how are we going to adapt and, you know, overcome all these challenges that come with it?
No, it's ongoing. Like you were saying, people in the past didn't survive these injuries. They died in combat.
Yep.
Now we're able, thank God, to save people like myself. And you have a lot of people in society now that have sustained wounds like myself and worse from combat, which is new. Like what does it look like for someone that's a bilateral above the knee amputee that has sustained traumatic injuries in combat look like when they're 60? No one really knows.
Nobody knows.
No one really knows what that looks like. So having an organizations like Yellow Ribbon Fund out there that is there to be that backstop and support system for what that question and mark is down the road is just uber important.
Yeah.
And to think that these type injuries will never happen again, I mean, is asinine. The GWAT is over. Obviously, like you were saying, in the heart of the GWAT, in that 2010 time frame, 2012 when I got injured, you're right. I remember going down to the MATSI and there's like the rumor mill is like, there's like 4 new guys coming in.
Yeah.
One of them's a quadruple amputee.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy shit, And it'd be like every other day, there's like, somebody else just got injured, or like, did you know such and such from that unit? Like they got somebody that was just injured, right? So it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not technically in like outright war right now.
Right.
But it's not like the world is any calmer, we'll say.
Right.
We still have our adversaries out there. And some of our partner nations that we work with strategically, they're going through it now. One of my, my very first processist in his company, they're in Silver Spring, Maryland. They're on the forefront of helping out a lot of Ukrainian soldier member. I got invited right before the holidays to a, what's it called? Shabbat dinner with a bunch of Israeli soldiers that are in the first year of their life of being an amputee.
Right.
So this is more of a common thing. So organizations like Yellow Ribbon Fund are really needed and kind of on the forefront of something because this is all new.
Yeah. So, I mean, like everything, as time goes on, people kind of forget or drop off, or they feel like I've taken care of that at the end. But like you just said, all these new injuries, but don't forget the old injuries. I mean, last I checked, your legs haven't grown back.
Yeah.
They're not growing back.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Maybe. Maybe. But with the way technology is and the way science is, truly, you never know.
Yep.
But there's always advancements. The robotics that you're on now looked very different 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
The quality of your walk and and how tired you get or not get anymore. It's a big difference. The osseointegration that a lot of these guys have done. I mean, that's a technology that they're building. Like they're basically, the robot leg is now part of you.
Yeah.
They're literally tying it into your bone.
Yeah.
So all of these advancements require these amputees to come back to the hospital and be worked on and studied and test all of these new things out. Yellow Ribbon Fund is helping support the travel, the lodging, the car rental, everything, so that they can get this support, because so many people are like, if they get a no, they can't afford it. Now they're on a stipend. They're getting their retired, benefits, whatever it's called. They've been med boarded out, and their ratings for however the percentage of injury, and then the years in service and all that other, their weird math there, and that's it. And you need an organization like Yellow Ribbon Fund, because a lot of them are not coming. I just spit. A lot of nonprofits are there because a lot of these families do not have the income to
sustain themselves,
pay for. Yeah. It's almost like these are like extras. Yeah. This is like, frivolous spend for a lot of people. And that to me is heartbreaking and unacceptable. We're in a country where so many people are not obligated. I talk about this a lot at home, and I get really upset that, people don't do more for their country. Mm-hmm. We're not obligated to serve our country, but this is a way you can serve. And it shouldn't be an obligation. You should want to, because whatever side of the fence you are politically, you're still allowed to be on that side because of men and women like you, who serve selflessly, and have agreed and signed up willingly to protect those rights. And they don't realize, like, you don't have those rights anywhere else.
Yeah. Unfortunately, once those rights are taken away, then people go, shit.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's too late.
So you should want to, and maybe it's not Yellow Ribbon Fund, you know, but like every single American, in my opinion, should support a veteran service organization. I would hope it's Yellow Ribbon Fund, but we're small.
Yeah.
I refer to us as small but mighty. I mean, we've served almost 50,000 service members in the course of the 20 years that we've been around. Our biggest budget was $3 million a year. Tiny.
Yeah.
But it's such an important direct impact. We are providing these life skills. Now we've expanded to caregiver support and family support. We're helping them with education. We're helping them with, you know, that community, that camaraderie side of it that we talked about being so important, that social side of it, giving them respite, peer-to-peer support. You know, we're engaging them.
I'll ask you an important question when it comes to nonprofits and donations and money, and donors want to know what their money goes to. One, so we'll talk about that. The question that gets brought up to me a lot when I talk about Yellow Ribbon Fund and what the fund does, how much of every dollar goes to programs? Like, what's your ratio?
For the past several years, we've had a 90% ratio, which means that for every dollar raised, 90 cents goes directly to our programs.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
I mean, that's a really great ratio.
Yeah.
If you look at other nonprofits, they're nowhere near that.
Yeah.
I mean, some are even higher than us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really incredible, but those are the organizations that you really want to support.
Yeah.
90%. I think the industry standard is at 80. You know, because there are needs. You know, the marketing and advertising; those things are very expensive, but considered bad money. And you need it because you need to build awareness.
Sure.
We try not to. I mean, we're short-staffed. We overwork ourselves. I do as the executive director.
Yeah.
But it's a personal mission for me. Last year, we brought our gala to South Florida here in Boca, and we're hosting it again this year on February 20th. And last year, as part of my speech, I remember telling everybody, welcome to the family. And that's truly our mantra. It is a family. We are creating that extension of support to all these people. So our 90% program ratios are so important to me because I want us to truly do what we say.
Yeah.
And I want to give people that feeling of family support because I know for me, that was critical to our success. And I'm proud of like where we've come and how far we've gotten because it, you know, as easy as we made it look, it was not easy, but we did it, you know, and I think we did it like in the best, most eloquent way possible.
Yeah.
You know,
no, it's definitely, I've watched it from, you know, my perspective as your husband, front row seat to being a board member, to seeing where the organization has come and grown to. And we've had some amazing people on the board.
Yeah.
From all walks of life and different sides of the political aisle.
Yeah.
And not just in DC, but kind of all over the country. And it's pretty cool to see this like kind of small, and what I like to think of like the ODA methodology of what you've kind of, I've instilled some Green Beretism in you to create these little cells across the country to help other families and caregivers to support guys like myself. Because like you were saying, you know, let's just call it what it is. I wouldn't be able to be sitting here and walking and succeeding in everything I've succeeded up to this point if it wasn't for someone like yourself. That'd be like, hey, I got to make you better and get you out the door. And if you take that person away, then I fail, right? Like I remember seeing people at the hospital when we were there in the early stages and like, oh, I'm going to go back to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. All right, that's great.
Yeah.
But when you go back to whatever station it is, or I'm going to move back to Houston. All right, you know, a lot of the times I think that they realize that they don't have the same support system that they have at the hospital, where you could just turn to your left or right and ask a question, say, I need something, or who do I go to? You move back home to Houston, it's just you guys.
Because home isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, it's totally different.
You don't realize.
Yeah.
You know, like like when I kind of like assess places that we go, you know, whenever we're going somewhere, I'm checking, like, people don't think about this. They think, oh, okay, well, it's, you know, it's wheelchair accessible. I'm thinking, is it prosthetic accessible?
Yeah.
You know, a silly baby slope is like a mountain to you sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll just kind of like, okay, hey, watch out for this, or, you know, look out for this. Do you need help? You know?
Yeah.
Now Peyton at 13 years old.
Yeah. He's there for me to help
he's there.
Use like a balance beam at times. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
He says that too. He'll be like, hey, you need me? I'm like, oh, I'm good. Or, or I'll be like, hey man, come here. Let me just borrow your shoulder for a second.
Yeah.
It's like a super steep slope.
Yeah.
So how can people help with Yellow Ribbon Fund? Is it just simple donations, or like, is it more?
I would say it's more. I mean, donations are obviously always what nonprofits are looking for. You know, we obviously need the financial support to continue to do what we do, but raising awareness, getting to know our mission, getting on board with what we're doing, spreading awareness, attending the gala, attending the events that we have. We don't have many. We have, you know, 2, try to limit that as well. But a gala here in South Florida, and then our ANCC golf outing every year up in DC area. And just, you know, talking to us, learning more, you know. Engaging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing what we do and really buying into the mission. Because truly, if you have a family, at some point, you've been a caregiver in your life, or you've been cared for in your life. These are people that unfortunately always need a caregiver.
Yeah.
And you don't need it right now. But what does 60 look like to you? We don't know. What does 70 look like? Am I kind of going back into that role? We don't know.
Yeah. I have an idea in my head.
and maybe.
Yeah.
But truly, you know, understanding that it shouldn't just be our duty to take care of our service members who have been injured in combat, because, you know, it should be something you want to do.
Yeah.
You give back. You understand that they need our help. They won't ask for it. Never. They will not ask for it. But they need it. They do. You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's protecting them. It's protecting their family. It's giving back to your country in a way that's very easy to do. You know?
No, definitely. Well, I think this is a good place for us to stop. Thank you so much for being my caregiver, for being my team member, and for coming on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
G, thanks so much.
Benny, love the handshake.
That's how I always wrap it up.
I love it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Team Harrow. Gina Harrow's journey reminds us of the power of resilience, compassion, and dedication in both personal and professional life. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a comment. Stay resilient, keep progressing, and we'll see you next time on Team Harrow.